Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Laura Mistopoulos. I'm with the Just in Time Training Program, and we are thrilled to have the opportunity to bring this series to you. Right now, we are on part 3 of a parent's guide to navigating challenging behaviors. I can tell you that this is probably the most requested training that we get is navigating challenging behaviors. So we're so blessed to have Family Initiatives partner with us to deliver these fantastic trainings. This one is part 3. It's challenging behaviors through the lens of occupational therapy. So we're sure you're going to get a lot of great information out of today's presentation. Okay, and today I want to thank our presenters that will be joining us. It's Gianna and Karen from Family Initiatives, and they're going to introduce themselves here momentarily. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Just in Time Training Network and who we are. So every child deserves a home filled with safety, love, and unwavering support. And we are here to provide foster parent training, caregiver training that's going to empower all caregivers with skills that they need to not only create that environment where they feel safe and can thrive, but also just empower you with the tools that you need when you need it. We have an online library right now of well over 200 training videos, and we also take requests. So if you are part of our network and you have a training or a training need, just send us the email and we would be happy to work with you to get that training put together. As we've just rolled out our new LMS to our existing partners, we are looking to add new additional partners. So if you have any need for training, just please reach out to us. We have flexible options based on your agency's needs, size, and budget. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our presenters, Gianna and Karen.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time, first off, out of your busy days. Hopefully you can get a little bit of information from us that will ultimately help within your environment. I am Gianna Gagnon. I am a board certified occupational therapist. Just a little bit about myself. I have been practicing OT for just about 10 years with a specialty in the pediatric field. I have served individuals within different settings, such as their homes, an outpatient facility, and then also school-based.
Hello, everyone. I am Karen Perea, and I am a CODA, which stands for Certified Occupational Therapy Assistant. And I have been working with Family Initiatives for about 3 years now. I am also a TBRI practitioner, which stands for Trust-Based Relational Intervention, and it's very attachment-based and trauma-informed.
Yeah, and like Karen said, we are part of Family Initiative, which is a non-for-profit organization within the state of Florida. We work with kids who are primarily diagnosed, with autism spectrum disorder, and we also engage with individuals within the child welfare community. So to start, a question that I know we both get quite frequently is, what is occupational therapy? You may know it as just OT. And I think simply stated, it just helps the individual live their life to the fullest. We're promoting that health and well-being, and just giving them the ability to participate in those activities, throughout their day. Those occupations, such as if it's a child, it may be their main occupation, which is play, or their education. Adults, it may be their activities of daily living, or even their workforce.
Mm-hmm. And we can work in pretty much any setting. It's a very broad career. We just specialize if we want to go into skilled nurse facility and work with that population. We can go into hospitals working with kids in the NICU. We can be in home and centers when we can go into the school like Gianna has, and we can help in a lot of things where we're needed, maybe in adaptive sitting or just working on that handwriting and strengthening. We like to meet the child where they're at, and the plans are very unique and set for each child, so they all look a little bit different. And here at Family Initiative, we like to really work a lot with the families and what they want their child to best help them succeed and just be successful and be the best that they can be.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does OT relate to those challenging behaviors? So throughout this presentation, we hope, again, to answer as many questions as we can, because sometimes it's not just a behavior that they're experiencing. There's so much more than just what your eyes or an outsider is looking at.
So yeah, and it can look a little bit different for everybody. So maybe you've noticed that time or hair brushing just becomes a little bit challenging, and that's when behaviors start to increase. Maybe for dressing, maybe because the texture of their clothing, they don't like it. They're very sensitive to it. Maybe they're constantly bumping or tripping and falling, or you're getting a call like so-and-so bumped into a locker or into a student. It might be necessarily on purpose. It could be something else like a sensory need that they're trying to meet.
Yeah, I think a great one too is if you have experienced, if you're out at a restaurant and you're seeing a little child running all over the place, or even if they're screaming during the dinner piece, from us, is it, oh my goodness, they're having that significant behavior, or is there more than just what our eyes are seeing?
Absolutely. So what is sensory integration? Right? So it is just how we experience, we interpret, and we can either react or ignore the information that we're receiving from our senses. So we all have different, we like to call it, if you like to visual, a cup. For me, you can pour the music, right? That's my auditory. That's great. It doesn't overflow my cup because I'm not overly sensitive to that particular sense. For some of the kiddos, a very loud noise can just absolutely overflow their cup, and now they're dysregulated. And it's very different and varies through child and through sense.
Yeah, I think it's also really important to note that the sensory integration is important in everything that we do, whether that's, again, getting dressed or eating, socializing, work. And for many of us, it's not such a nuisance. For example, if we go to a concert, you may have that temporary where you get a headache, but like I said, it's temporary. For individuals that have a sensory processing deficit, it influences everything that they're dealing with, and it's more long term. So it's really important for us to be able to understand what their sensory system is seeking or avoiding, and provide some strategies to just help with their everyday life. Okay, so we're going to move into there's external senses and internal senses. The external senses are, I think, what most of us are more familiar with, whether that's the vision, the hearing, the gustatory, which is your taste, olfactory, which is smell, and obviously the touch. There are some of those internal senses that you just don't see.
Like our proprioception, the vestibular, and the interoception. So when we talk about, we're going to go more in depth, but proprioceptive is just more of that kind of deep pressure in your joints, your muscles, your tendons. That vestibular is just letting you know where you are in space, right? The movement. And interoception is more of internal, like our internal organs. And we're going to break all of these up and show you what they might look like, what we can do as we go through these. So there are two that we like to differentiate two different types of needs. So like, or defensive, which is the ones that are over responsive. Like if we talk about like back to the example with the cup, so you might hear a little horn or you might drop something that's really loud. That sound can, for someone who's very defensive and responsive, you're overflowing their cup. Not intentionally, right? But it's just like what we mentioned, this is something that has a long-term effect throughout their life. So they might be very high to touch. Maybe if I have a kiddo who is sensitive to touch, like if I were to put my hand on their back, they might pull back or take off running or scream or cry, but because that just that simple, just hand in the shoulder was too much, was unexpected. They didn't know and they don't know how to react to that.
And that's why a personal experience, it's really important to not force, especially kids, to give hugs. Because it might not just be that personal space, it's more. It's that sensory piece that they're very defensive. And since we're talking about the other one, the seeking, people who are sensory seeking, those are the individuals that need more. They're very under responsive. So those might look like individuals who are frequently, kind of running all over the place. They show poor attention to a task. Maybe they're always mouthing something or needing to touch constantly. And they might feel, they may fear, oh my goodness, let's see if it can come out, appear fearless, or not even notice when they are in pain. I like to give an example of if you touched a hot stove, the majority of us would take our hand off immediately. Those that are under responsive may not necessarily feel it initially when it's burning your hand. Okay, so we are going to dive into those senses and we're going to discuss the ones that are more internal. So the ones that you're not seeing. So we will introduce you to proprioception. And this is basically the muscles and the tendons of your body. They're sending those signals into the brain. So it gives us a sense of force or the sense of heaviness, along with your body positions. So it just helps with that body awareness.
It's letting you know, like, okay, right now we're stretching or we need to pull. Like if the kid's in the monkey bar, you're hanging up. It's that sense and it's letting you know where you are. So this is one of the things that you might see.
Yeah, exactly. So what you might see with a child who is seeking that proprioception are individuals that are maybe hitting other friends or headbanging. Also the ones that are just playing a little bit too rough. Maybe you're constantly telling your child, easy,
Gentle hands.
Gentle hands. That's what we talk a lot about. Or they're always needing to like crash. And sometimes we say it's being a boy, but maybe they're just really seeking that proprioception.
And they may not necessarily know how much pressure they're using, especially some of the kiddos that you can see like they're breaking their crayons or the pencils when they write. It's just, they're not aware of, to them, that's like, this is what I'm seeking, but they don't realize that they're just putting too much pressure.
Yep. And sometimes they may just appear clumsy or uncoordinated. Maybe they're always falling on the floor, or when they're walking, in the grocery store, they're constantly needing to touch everything within the aisle. It could just be they're trying to get some sort of proprioception throughout their joints.
It could be still a cereal box, but the box is different. It's a different color, a different size, so we need to touch it.
Absolutely.
So like, what can you do, right, in your home? I do this a lot in my sessions. I like to involve my kids and tell them like they're my helpers. So be like, oh, hey, great, can you help me move this? And you can do this at home, and it will be a great opportunity also to just connect even more with your child. Like have them help you like bring the groceries in or put them, put them away with you. It would be really fun and a little activity like a family, and it's something that they can do, right? Maybe they can carry the, I don't know, cookies or the water. Yeah.
Yep. We like to call those like those heavy work tasks. So imagine when you go to the gym and you just feel very relaxed after, at least I do. It's all of that heavy work that you're building up that strength. So think of it as anything your body is physically doing that you're feeling that force,
Mhm.
that's going to be that proprioception. So I think it's also important to note that we all are involving ourselves in proprioceptive input throughout the day. For those individuals that still need that additional, that additional support, we provide them with those activities to, continue to regulate them throughout the day. And sometimes it's not just those activities that you're doing, but maybe we have to do something to help, like deep pressure,
Like the bear hug.
like the bear hug. Yes.
A little massage, any gentle squeezes like on their arms, like, and you can make it a game like now it's raining and you're
Mhm.
tapping. So it's like, because some kids might not react well to light pressure. And so sometimes I like to start with light pressure and then end with that deep pressure because it is calming.
Yeah.
There are a lot of different things out there that you can get for a home. Like there's a body sock, like it gives you that it's like a body sock. I don't know how to describe it, but you get in it, you can, I think some have zippers or buttons. And like any movement that you do inside of it gives you that like tight hug and squeeze.
Yep.
There's a lot of now weighted little stuffed animals, weighted blankets that could be used.
Yeah. Even cushions off of your couch. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Created like a simple obstacle course. Like maybe your kid is coming from school and now they have all this energy. You gotta cook dinner. They can't focus and do their homework, right? Setting up, if you don't mind, like a little obstacle course. You don't have to go out and buy anything. It could be a pool noodle. You can tape it down to the floor if you don't have like a carpet, and it could be a little balancing beam. You can like have the kid go through the legs of the chairs, and it could be like, a tunnel. You don't necessarily need to have it. You can create it within your home. If you don't mind using cushions, or if you have old cushions that you don't mind the kids using, have them hop from here to there, making sure that they don't glide, right? So they don't fall.
The great thing about kids is just make it fun and engaging. And as Karen has spoken about too, it's, we're trying to build that relationship with our children too. And of course, what better fun than to do obstacle courses and like swimming and yoga poses and all of that great stuff that we can get our strength and our proprioceptive all regulated.
And more heavy work, have them then clean it up afterwards if they can.
Exactly.
And then get ready to do the homework, and then they complete it. They're nice and focused. And so our second internal sense is the vestibular. So this is the inner fluid in our ear. So this just lets you know where you are in space, and it is actually the first sense to the very first one to develop 5 months after conception. And it just let you know where you are in space, right? If I were to lie down, or if I'm changing and doing cartwheels, or I'm in my belly, in the swing, right? It just lets you know what direction, the speed we're going. And it has a lot of effect on everything, like our muscle tone, right? Being able to keep our head up and our balance, and just overall like eye movements and alertness.
Yeah. And going back to, the behavioral piece, sometimes we mislabel kids as being those bad kids because they cannot sit still. They're always on the go. Just like the example I made at the restaurant, they're running around. They may be those seekers that just need more input to regulate their system. So giving them, that kind of takes us into the next one, giving them some of those activities to participate in. Sorry, where are we at? Okay. So what you may see, again, is those that are running around. They may rock or pace. I'm not sure if you're noticing me, but I'm such a swayer. It's my way of regulating my system. I'm just always needing to rock. They may be that fearful of the movement as well, or like the visual tracking.
Yeah. Can they read the page, or do they skip lines? Do they skip a couple words? Can they copy what their teacher has in the board and copy it down to the paper? So it affects all of that, all aspects. And so some of the things that we can try at home, and it can go both ways. Some of these activities could be alerting, and some of them could be calming.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And some of those alerting activities could just be if you have a trampoline, get them out there and jump on that trampoline. Or if you don't have a trampoline, jumping in place, doing some jumping jacks, or those therapy balls. We call them like the yoga balls, bouncing on those. But on the opposite side, you have I know in my house, we like to do calming activities right before bed. They're usually right after school. They're very high strung, so we want to bring them back down. My husband and I will take a sheet and they'll take turns. It's usually a fight of who's going to go first, but they'll go into the sheet and we'll do just a very slow rock back and forth and that linear motion. I also have about a year-old little one, and I usually will rock him to sleep. So the things that we're so used to as parents of rocking, that's actually helping them regulate their vestibular system.
Now that you mentioned the sheet, we do this activity sometimes with our kiddos is if we have like a group activity, if it could be like a whole family thing, have one sit in the middle of the sheet and everyone else just drags you across the room.
Yeah.
And then you can take turns, have them do it with their older siblings. Like that's a lot of like heavy work and vestibular all in once.
Yeah. Yep.
So inexpensive. You just have an old sheet, just use it.
Yep.
There you go. Don't throw it away.
And even things like gymnastics is so good for children. They're constantly doing those upside down activities like the cartwheels. We do a lot of animal walks, like bear walks or crab walks, where their head may be upside down. And that's just, again, regulating that system.
And I'll say, even if your child is afraid or is the avoider of all these things, the important thing is not to push them or rush them to get to it. All of these are baby steps, and it doesn't happen overnight. I know, especially like feeding is something that could take a very long time. For some of our kiddos, I don't like to push, especially if I know they're fearful of it. They might be fearful of the swing. Just them pushing the swing, it's a win to me.
Yep.
If they just maybe slightly sit on it and then come back down, that's fine. That's a baby step. That's a win. That's something that we didn't do the week before. And then eventually now I have kids who were afraid of the swing. Now they're like going crazy and want to push go using their legs, using their arms. And it's just, we need to create that safe environment for them to explore and really get to keep it up.
Yeah.
Senses.
Yeah, I would agree. Always encourage, never force.
Mm-hmm. So our very last internal sense is the interoception. So this is or more internal, right? So the internal state of our organs and the internal receptors that send messages to our brain to let you know you're hungry. You're thirsty. You need to take a sip of water, right? Or it's really hot outside. You need, bring an umbrella or sunglasses, sunblock. Now it's cold. We need a jacket, right? So it just helps you understand all of that. And I like to tell my parents that you need to, and like the parents of my kiddos, talk about it, right? How do you feel when you're hungry? Maybe you're like, oh, I'm starting to get a headache or my tummy feels like this. And maybe I think I'm hungry. So talking about this, it just helps your kids just understand that like, oh, okay, maybe I don't have a tummy ache, but it could be that I just need a snack.
Or even as adults, the term hangry. So much of it stems from that interoception, that internal feeling where it's like, if we don't get that food and we're not understanding that, maybe our anger is coming out in not a very pleasant way, or our senses are not coming out in a positive way, it's going to turn into a behavior.
And some of our kiddos in the autism spectrum, they can feel everything going through their intestines. So when they eat, they some of them can really feel it going down. So you can only feel for the kiddos who, when they get constipated, they can feel it. They can absolutely feel it. And I have a kiddo who like put my hand down in his stomach and just push down, and I can just feel how tight he is. And like he looks at me and it's painful. Like he is a nonverbal kid, so it comes up as behavior. He might be running around, he might be screaming, he might be crying, and nobody knows why. But after the years getting to know him, I can see the signs and be like, okay, I know, I have a feeling, I know his history, I kind of know where this could be coming from. And the minute I start like just doing that deep pressure in his stomach or putting him and his stomach on a ball, you can just, he stops, and it's like that relief. And so it came up as a behavior. He was screaming, he was crying, but it wasn't that he just, he was bad. It's just, he's in pain, and he feels everything that's going on.
Right. Yep. Exactly what Karen has spoken about. What you may see with kiddos that, have this difficulty are, may not have that urge to use the bathroom, or having those frequent accidents, or that constipation that Karen had spoken about.
So you might be on the road and you tell your kid, it's going to be a long ride. Use the bathroom before we go. And they're like, I don't need to. I'm fine. The minute you're 5 minutes in, maybe it's like, it's now or never. It's because we just don't know.
Yeah.
So what else can we do? So this is why I also said it's great for us to tell them how we're feeling, not only like when you're hungry or thirsty, but also with our feelings. Like maybe, right now I'm just a little all over the place, so I just need to take a break. I need to stop. I need to breathe. A great one that I like to use is I'll hold my hand up and I'll tell my kiddos, just blow the candles one at a time. So you take a nice deep breath and then you blow one nice and slow. And that is one candle down, and you keep doing that all throughout. And you can just kind of see them kind of come down. A great one is using just same thing, using the fingers, but you breathe in as you go up, and then you breathe out when you go down on the finger, and you keep doing that all throughout. And you can do these as many. I think from 3 to 5, it's great. And if you need more, absolutely go for it.
Yep.
But that's like the kind of number I like to stick with.
Yeah. Some other strategies for home is, especially when you're doing the potty training, I know that we're all, as parents, we're used to a toileting routine. And then I know Karen's mentioned this a few times, is practicing that understanding of that sensation, so that they can start knowing what that internal feeling is and what they can do to move forward with that. Okay, so we have finished with the internal sensations. We will be moving forward with the external sensations. And our first one is the tactile. So this is the information that is coming through our largest organ, which is the skin. And I know we have mentioned, being, overly sensitive or underly sensitive. Same goes for our tactile sensation. So being hypersensitive means the oversensitivity, and hyposensitivity is that under-responsive. So what you may see is, I know I don't laugh, but I laugh because my daughter is a perfect example of this. I know right before she goes to school in the morning, it's going to be a challenge. And I know after bath time, it's going to be a challenge, because she does not like to brush her hair. She is extremely hypersensitive to the brushing of the hair. And then some individuals also are very sensitive to haircuts. So I know that's going to be a challenge for many individuals, but more so for children who are on that autism spectrum. Individuals may also be fearful of those crowds. We mentioned earlier about not wanting to hug or cuddle, or on the opposite, they may really need that input and love those hugs.
I want to hug everybody or touch anything.
Yes. And even for like the babies, I usually will capture my own kids, their first experience in grass or sand. Usually as soon as you put them down, their feet usually will kind of go up because they're just not used to it. They're very sensitive until you can build up and that they tolerate it more.
I think that's a great way to
Yeah.
put it, the tolerance.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So what can we do at home? Again, we never want to force. We always want to ask for their permission. And it may not be such, do you mind me, letting you touch this? It could just be slowly introducing something to them. What we do a lot of in therapy is sensory bins. We also, I don't know if you can see these, but little fidgets that have different textures in them. So we might have a rice bin that has multiple different pieces that have, maybe it's something, scratchy, something smooth, something very like cotton balls. I'm not a huge fan of cotton balls, but continuing to expose them to different textures will help desensitize and overall, desensitize them for the different textures.
And this doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's a pom pom. You can have a straw. This is actually a pipe cleaner, so it's cut, and I had someone put beads through it. So it's something very simple, and I have this in a little baggie. I got it at the dollar store because it's just something I can have in my bag when I have to go to a school or in a home session. I can just pull it right out and has everything that I know need, and it kind of covers every different texture.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then in OT, we do a brushing protocol, which it looks like just like a clear little brush that tries to like wake up that system a little bit. It's a very prescriptive routine, but some great, to get the same result that we would ultimately get in therapy, you can be doing at home, not with a brush, but more with the different textures within your house. For example, if you know that your child only can tolerate that very soft washcloth, maybe giving them the chance to use a loofah where it has like that scratchy material. Bed sheets is another one. Maybe they're only used to sleeping with flannel. Maybe introduce them to that silk. And again, build up that tolerance.
And I have a kiddo who was fine playing with rice, a bin full of rice, but when it came to a bin full of beans, it was not okay. So he didn't want to touch it. He kind of just like poked it, wanted nothing to do with it. But I kept it in the room every single time he came in. And eventually it's like, I'm not forcing you, but if you were curious and you wanted to look at it one more time, it's always available, and it was there. And eventually one time he just picked it up, and I was like, oh my God, he touched it. And it was like the greatest, because it was a big step, the fact that he even grabbed it and touched it. And
that's a great example for letting them experience something without forcing. So she always has that rice bin. It's right there whenever. You're not pushing the individual to have to touch it.
And sometimes they're more inclined to do it when they're not being told to, or it's like specific time.
Yeah.
Like, in case I don't like it, I'll do it when no one's looking.
Yeah.
So another one that we all know about is, of course, our vision, right? So it affects our eye-hand coordination, right? Can they catch a ball, or can they throw a ball? Like basketball, sports is great. Can they cross their midline is something that we also look at, and it just affects writing, reading, all of it. So can I grab something that's on my right side with my left hand, or since it's on this side, I'm just gonna stick to my right hand, stick to my left hand, right? We like to do a lot of activities where they have to use and cross. So maybe I have a favorite toy, and this hand maybe is occupied with a fidget, or they're weight bearing through that hand, so they have to use the other hand and cross that. Some of the kiddos might trip could be because that visual perception, when they look down to the floor, it just doesn't look as level like we do. Like, I know it's flat. I can see that. Oh, I can see that there's a step coming. So I know I'm going to have watch out for that. Some of the kiddos, their visual perception is just not aligned. So they might not see that there's a step, and that's why they're tripping all the time.
What I've seen in like the school system a lot too is we'll get referrals for individuals that are tripping. And the first thing I ask is, have they had a vision screening as well? I think that's very important too, to kind of rule out different things before diving into some of these senses as well.
Yeah. because when I was doing my field work, I got to see one of the girl who the same thing. She would trip a lot, and eventually they the OT told them go one more time to the doctor, and they can do more tests. And they did. The doctor did a couple of tests, and she ended up getting this prism glasses, so it's kind of like a diamond, and it's just like let her see the floor a little bit different in that aspect where she can now see like, oh, okay, there's a step. Or it's like overtime. Sometimes you just have to be a detective.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like see what can I do to help or adjust or change just so they're successful.
And even sometimes like in in the classroom, if your child is struggling with reading or even copying information from the board to the table, sometimes the stigma could be they just don't want to do it. But maybe there's more to it. Maybe it's a visual issue. So working on some of these activities will help with that overall visual piece.
Or could it be the light? So you would see, I've seen some classrooms have that cover, the light cover, right? So it's not as bright. I love doing puzzles, right? Puzzles is like my favorite thing. Which is great to see when I see the kids doing the pieces. I'm like, well, it looks like it's upside down. It's clearly an eye. Where would an eye go? Or like I Spy or find all these items. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even when you're in the car doing I Spy, while you're driving is such a great activity to do just to build up that visual field as well. So to us, it just seems like it's a typical play. But to them, it's working on so much more.
Or you could be at home in your backyard, maybe you're cooking dinner and your child wants your attention, but you can't play with them right there and right now. You can do that like, yeah, you're cooking, but like, oh, I spy something like this in the kitchen. And like to them, that's everything because you're cooking dinner, lunch, whatever it is, but you're also giving them that attention and turning it into a game while working on all these skills.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we will be moving on to our next sense, which is the auditory system. So hearing. What you may see, again, with those over responsive individuals, they may startle very easily, especially to unexpected noises. Or have you ever been talking to somebody and they're like, all over here. They're not listening to you because there may be a bird chirping outside and it's like amplified to them.
Or the sound of the bulbs, they have a little static sound that I don't hear, but to some of the kids, they're like, it's so annoying. Don't you hear that? No. And that's why they can't focus or they might have heard you tell them to go take a shower, but to them that was in and out because they're focused on something else.
Yeah. I know for my own child, going in public restrooms is such a challenge because she doesn't like this, the noise of the restroom,
Flushing.
the flushing. Yep. It's just too much. So she'll automatically cover her ears. On the opposite side,
Denise doesn't like the dryer when you put your hands under and it just blows. Like she's terrified of it.
And on the other side, you have those that maybe your child, you've called their name 5 times, 6 times, and they're still not responding. It could be that they're just under responsive. So what you could do for those type of kiddos is maybe do an auditory hide and seek, like a Marco Polo, or have them locate different sounds within your home or even outside. Like, did you hear that bird chirping?
Or where is it coming from too? Like knowing where the noise is coming from.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And for those that are over responsive, we would recommend some noise canceling headphones when you know that you will be going to like that public restroom. And even just playing some soft and calming music will just ultimately help that system.
Then we have our gustatory, right? So this is our taste. It's funny because some kiddos might not react very well to different textures, right? It could be anything. They might gag. They're like highly sensitive to it. So maybe working little baby steps towards that. They might cough and choke a lot while they're eating. And that's another sign that you can then go to the doctor and then kind of see what else we can do.
Yep.
They might be really that picky eater, right? They might put everything in their mouth as well.
Oh goodness. Yep. Yep. I know. Again, in my household, I swear I have so many sensory avoiding kiddos within my house. So dinner time, lunchtime, all of that is such a challenge. But continued exposure in that safe and like non-forced way will ultimately just make it for such a pleasant future.
And the taste buds are different. The taste thing, maybe I wish I could taste it how they did, but I've heard parents be like, they won't eat any of the chicken nuggets, but McDonald's, but they don't like their fries. They like Burger King fries, so they're like driving back and forth from McDonald's to Dunkin' to Burger King because they just like certain types of the texture. And have had parents be like, I've tried to fool them. I bought them here, and then I put it in the box and nope, they spit it right out because they knew it tasted different. It is not the same.
And sometimes just like including them in the food prep process, make it exciting for them. I know it's not going to happen overnight, but getting their hands within that prep phase is really important as well. Or even giving them that opportunity to play with their food. I know sometimes it's not socially acceptable, but just letting them experience those different textures, the different feelings, all of that will build that relationship with food.
And I think including them being part of like making the grocery list too, picking something that maybe that they might like, and something new they want to try. I think just overall that connection, make them feel included and like they have a say, is just really big. And I know we've seen that a lot when we include them. So some of the things that you can do, we have chewing gum is great. And it's also that deep pressure, that proprioceptive, which then increases the focus and attention. You can blow the bubbles. You don't know how hard it is to actually use the straw. Well, like if you can see in the picture, it's an activity you had to like kind of like inhale and drag the paper to the other side. It was such a hard task. Most of the kids were like blowing. I'm like, no, inhale. It's hard, but it's something super simple that I'm sure you have at home that you can use.
Yep. Not even like sucking it in, but like blowing. If you put like maybe cotton balls and just giving them that fun, silly, playful, that's also getting the results that we would want as parents and as, clinicians. So our next one is going to be the olfactory.
Yeah. So our sense of smell. This is such a tricky one. I'll tell you, for me, the smell of cinnamon, I don't like it. But again,
so the cinnamon brooms, you're not about them.
No,
at the holidays.
No, and the what do they call? But when you decorate, is it the acorns or the little pine?
The pine cones.
Pine cones. Yeah. I cannot. It makes me nauseous and it makes my head hurt, and it's just overall too overwhelming, and I cannot focus. Then I'm gonna have a migraine. So you can just see, like, I know this for myself because I kind of thought, and I was like a detective, and I'm like, why is all of this things happening? Right. So that's imaginary kiddos, or the kiddos that can tell us, but they don't know how, or the ones that cannot, or nonverbal. That's when we say you got to be a detective.
Yep. So some strategies, if you do have your children or different individuals that you may know, here's some great strategies that you can try at home. If they're overly responsive, so they may not like all of those strong scents, try fragrance-free cleaning products. Teaching them some coping strategies as well, like some deep breathing, or I know usually with my own kids, providing them with, extreme ventilation within our house, like opening up the doors where we know that she doesn't like what the food smells like. So opening up, keeping everything ventilated.
Diffuser.
The diffuser, exactly. And those that are under responsive, you can provide them with like hand creams or aromatherapy. I know in cafeterias, it might not smell the greatest. So a little strategy we like to do is like put some essential oil, maybe on their little shirt that they can keep breathing, or right here on their hand. So when they're walking into new areas that they may not like, they'll have a pleasant smell.
And this is like a great way to tie it in with the behavior. Like if your kid is sensitive to the smell and they're in school and they know lunch is coming and they have to go to the cafeteria, that transition is not going to be as smooth because they're trying at all costs to avoid that. So they're probably going to try to make a run for it, or they freeze and they will refuse to move. But you're like, oh, why? They're just refusing. Look at all this behavior. But it's more than that. It's not the fact that they're so sensitive and they feel like maybe they're not going to be able to enjoy their food or walk in and they just can't. Right? It's too much. It's too overwhelming.
Yeah. All right, so some key takeaways. I know as clinicians and as a mom myself, I always have that sensory toolkit packed and ready to go. Some good ones that are very like easy to bring along are those essential oils or those lotions for that help with the smell. Chewing gum, fidgets. I have to show Miss Karen, she has a fidget. And it's so easy to put in your purse and ready to go. Even sunglasses and hats to help eliminate some of that external stimuli that's just too much for them. And
in the headphones, it doesn't have to be any like super expensive brand either.
No.
It's just anything.
I've seen dollar store,
Yeah.
the Dollar Tree that has some noise canceling headphones. Amazon's a great place. But we joke, but it's so true. It's when in doubt, seek out that heavy work opportunity. Make sure that it's embedded within your daily life, whether that's opening the doors for somebody, carrying some of those heavy groceries, pushing the shopping carts.
Any opportunity, or if you happen to be sitting on the floor in your living room, having your child help you, oh, I can't get up, like just making it super silly and just like depending on the age, I know. But the older they get, it's kind of harder because then, teenagers.
Yep. So we love that. And I hope you guys maybe got a little bit of information that can help with some of those challenging behaviors in your home or when you are in public. Just make it fun, make it engaging, build that rapport with your child and just have fun with them, because sometimes it's just not that behavior. There's more to it, like that sensory.
And take it slow. I'll say don't get frustrated if you feel like it's not working. A lot of times you just got to stay consistent, and that repetition and like exposure, it gets easier and better over time.
It does.
Mhm.
It does. So we would love to take any questions that you guys may have.
We just got a question about washing hair. What can one of our viewers do when their child is freaking out for washing hair?
So it's almost an open-ended question for me. So is it the soap? Is it the water pressure from the shower? Or is it just that fear of the water in general? I know, for instance, the shower is very intimidating. It could be that pressure that's coming down. An alternative, of course, would just be bathing, like in the bathtub, allowing them to start pouring the water on their hair to start with. And if they're still not at that point where you cannot wash their hair, making sure that it's not like such a struggle and you're forcing it, maybe allow them just to like put a little bit of soap at the very end. And
there's like soaps at the Dollar Tree. If you look, they have like all these colors. Making it fun.
I have to say as well, one of our clients, she also struggles with that hair washing routine. So something that we've integrated is allowing her to wash her baby doll's hair. So letting her still experience the water and the soap, but in a very friendly, and she's what word am I?
sequencing all
She's
of that.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
playing with
Yeah.
it, or it could be Mickey Mouse. I think the other
Mhm.
day it was Mickey Mouse, so we were giving Mickey Mouse a bat.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sequencing all of that.
Okay, great. We have another viewer who's having an issue with a child that is having negative behavior when they want to limit their use on electronics. Any thoughts around that one? Which I think a lot of us can relate to.
That. Go ahead.
And with our similar kids, maybe like a set expectation,
Mhm.
very clear. I know we use timers a lot, or that
Yeah.
visual
Yep.
timer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I would also, so if you're, what are they watching on the iPad?
Mhm.
Is it an academic task, or is it just like a YouTube video? I think Karen, said it correctly, set that expectation, possibly use that timer, but then also provide them with a different activity to do, where, they're going to start understanding that it's not all iPad. Mom also has these X, Y, and Z activities to do that's more fun and engaging, whether it's like a color by number, going outside, building that obstacle course. So just continue, like, put that, put it back on you as what would you want to do as a child at this age that is fun and enticing, where they don't necessarily need that iPad.
or like it could be like I like to say like, okay, what would you like to do after
Like a first
that one?
then.
And it could be like, oh great, you want to do a puzzle? Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome. But first,
Yeah.
we need to do this.
Yeah.
That also helps a lot.
And if we're just being very general, please feel free to message us and we can kind of dive into those questions a little bit deeper.
All right, that's great. I don't see any other questions coming up here, so I just want to say thank you and reiterate that our presenters' email addresses are on here. So if you have further questions, feel free to reach out. And I just want to thank you both so much for this wonderful presentation. It was really fantastic, and I am sure that that it was very helpful to a lot of families who are seeing these different behaviors with their children.